She doesn't beg, she doesn't bargain, she doesn't cut the crusts off, hide vegetables in the sauce, or promise dessert if he just takes 3 more bites. The boy looks at the bowl. He picks up his chopsticks, and he eats. If you grew up in a Western household, that scene might feel almost unreal. Because for millions of American parents, mealtime is a battleground. It is the place where perfectly patient adults find themselves negotiating with a tiny human over a single piece of broccoli, where dinner tables become stages for meltdowns, and where the phrase, "just one more bite," gets repeated so many times it loses all meaning. If this is your life right now, you are not failing. You have just been handed a completely different set of beliefs about food, children, and what a parent's role actually is. And those beliefs, it turns out, are quietly making mealtimes harder than they need to be. What that Japanese mother understands, without necessarily being able to put it into words, comes from something embedded so deeply in Japanese culture that it shapes everything from how children are raised to how the elderly are cared for. It is a philosophy that most Western parents have never encountered, and once you see it, you will not be able to unsee it. The first concept you need to understand is called Omoiyari, pronounced Omoiyari, written with characters that individually mean to imagine, to feel, and to give. Together, Omoiyari translates roughly as the ability to anticipate what another person needs before they ask for it, and to act on that feeling without being told. It is a form of empathy so active and so practiced that in Japan it begins in early childhood. Japanese children are not just taught to be kind, they are taught to notice, to read the room, to sense when someone is hungry, tired, uncomfortable, or sad, and to respond to that without waiting for instructions. Now here is where it connects to food. In a household shaped by Omoiyari, a child is not treated as someone who needs to be coaxed or manipulated into doing the right thing. The child is expected, gently and consistently, to be a participant in the shared life of the family. Eating is not a performance the child puts on for the parent. It is simply what the family does together. The child's role is to show up, observe, and participate. The parent's role is not to manage the child's plate. It is to model the behavior and trust that the child will follow. This leads us to the second concept, which is called Mimamoru, pronounced Mi-ma-mo-ru. Written with 2 characters, one meaning to watch and one meaning to protect. Mimamoru is the Japanese parenting philosophy of watchful waiting. It means you are present, you are attentive, but you do not intervene unless something is truly wrong. You let the child struggle a little. You let them figure things out. You trust the process. A Japanese parent practicing Mimamoru at the dinner table is not ignoring their child. They are doing something much harder. They are resisting the urge to step in. In the West, we have been taught that good parenting means active, visible involvement at every moment. If the child is not eating, we feel responsible. We feel like we must do something. So we do. We offer alternatives, we make deals, we turn on a screen to distract them into taking bites. We praise every forkful like it is a miracle. And in doing so, we accidentally teach the child something very specific, that not eating is a tool for getting attention, negotiation, and reward. The child is not manipulating you deliberately. They are simply learning from the feedback loop you have created. And once that loop is established, it is very hard to break. Research from the University of Minnesota, published in the journal Appetite, found that children who are repeatedly pressured to eat specific foods actually develop stronger negative associations with those foods over time. The more a parent pushes, the more the child resists. Not because the child is stubborn, but because pressure removes the child's sense of agency, and the only way to reclaim it is to refuse. The study also found that children in low-pressure food environments, where meals were consistent and calm but never forced, showed significantly higher dietary variety by age 7. They ate more vegetables, more proteins, more foods across the board, simply because those foods were offered without drama. This brings us to the third Japanese concept, which is called Shokuiku, pronounced Shokuiku, written with characters meaning food and education or nurturing.
Shokuiku is Japan's national food education philosophy, formalized into law in 2005, and it is built on a completely different foundation than what most Western parents are working from. Shokuiku is not about teaching children which foods are healthy. It is about teaching children to have a relationship with food, where food comes from, how it is prepared, what it smells like before it is cooked, what the farmer looked like who grew it. Japanese children as young as 3 participate in age-appropriate food preparation. They help rinse rice, they tear lettuce, they set the table with care. By the time a meal is served, a Japanese child has often been part of making it, which means they are already invested in it before the first bite. A study from Kyoto University, published in the journal Public Health Nutrition, found that children who participated in regular meal preparation at home were significantly more likely to eat a wide variety of foods and showed lower rates of picky eating behavior than children who had no involvement in food preparation. The act of touching, smelling, and helping to create a meal builds what researchers called sensory familiarity, which is the brain's way of deciding that something is safe to eat. Unfamiliar foods feel threatening to young children, not because they are difficult, but because their nervous systems are wired to be cautious about the unknown. Shokuiku dissolves that unfamiliarity long before the food reaches the plate. So let's talk about what this actually looks like in practice. Because understanding a philosophy is one thing, doing something different tonight is another. Here is your first tactic. Stop commenting on what your child eats or does not eat during the meal. This is harder than it sounds, because we have been trained to use praise and encouragement as parenting tools, and it feels wrong to sit quietly while your child ignores their plate. But every comment you make about food during a meal, whether it is "great job eating your peas" or "come on, just try it," pulls your child's attention away from their own hunger signals and toward you. It makes eating about your reaction instead of their experience. For the next 7 days, sit down, eat your own food, talk about normal things at the table, things that have nothing to do with food, and let the meal happen without narrating it. You are practicing Mimamoru. You are watching, you are trusting, you are not managing.
Here is your second tactic. Begin involving your child in one small part of meal preparation, at least 3 times a week. This does not have to be complicated. A 2-year-old can wash vegetables under running water. A 3-year-old can tear bread or stir a bowl. A 5-year-old can help measure ingredients or arrange food on a serving dish. The task matters less than the involvement. You are building Shokuiku. You are giving your child a relationship with food that exists before the meal begins. So by the time they sit down, they are already connected to what is on the table. Children almost always eat what they helped make, not because they are proud of themselves, but because the food is no longer a stranger to them. Here is your third tactic. Eat the same meal together as a family at least 4 nights a week, without exception and without substitution. One of the most common Western mealtime habits is offering an alternative when a child refuses the main dish. Something simple, something the child will definitely eat, just to make sure they go to bed with something in their stomach. This feels like good parenting, but what it actually communicates is that refusal works, and that there was always a better option available if the child holds out long enough. Japanese family meals do not typically work this way. The meal is the meal. It is made with care, it is offered with warmth, and it is not replaced. A child who is hungry will eat. A child who knows an alternative is coming will wait for it. This is not about being rigid or unkind. It is about trusting your child's body and your own instincts more than you trust the fear of an unfinished plate. There is something quietly profound about what the Japanese mother at the beginning of this video is doing. She is not just getting her son to eat his dinner. She is teaching him through every silent and unhurried meal that he is capable of knowing what his body needs. That food is something to be respected, not weaponized. That the table is a place of connection, not conflict. She is doing this not through clever tactics or parenting hacks, but through the accumulated weight of a culture that has thought very carefully about what children actually need versus what anxious adults assume they need. The gap between those two things is where most of the struggle lives. And closing that gap does not require a different child. It requires a slightly different way of seeing the one you already have. If this video shifted something in the way you see mealtimes and what your child is actually capable of, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if
If you want more on how the world's wisest cultures quietly build peace, confidence, and health into everyday family life, subscribe. There's a lot more coming. See you in the next one.